Alright guys, so today we're going to be reviewing this Quasi twin tail board that you guys actually bought for me on a stream. Shout out to you guys. I have all of your names, written here on the board. I'll just read the first three that I see. Ren, Zog, Chris, and Carlton. There's so many more that have, scratched off or whatever. But you guys really wanted me to review this board, and I'm really glad that I listened to you. So let's get into some of the specs about this board. So first off, we're just gonna measure the length of it. So after I've skated it, we're looking around 31 and 5/8. So pretty much 31 and 3/4. Probably was 31 and 3/4, but after skating it, probably shortened it a little bit. So as far as the width goes, it's supposed to be 8.37. In the middle of the board, we're looking just over 8.25. So, I mean, that's close enough to 8.37 for me. As we get over the trucks, just a hair under 8.25, I'd say. Then once we get to the pocket, that's where it starts to thin out. Halfway up the nose, or the tail, we're looking like 7.5. So you can see this isn't the most full kick you've ever seen. I'll compare it to, Wendell sent me this Monarch board with a big full nose. So I feel like I can see a difference there. Let me know if I'm tripping in the comments, but this one looks a lot pointier, a lot more tapered, and this one is a lot more full, right? Then if we compare, then if we go ahead and compare the tails, this one is pretty tapered, and this one is a lot more full, even as a tail. So you definitely got a tapered kick going here. Now, in terms of wheelbase, we're looking about 14.25. Here, let me ask AI what the standard wheelbase is. Let's see what ChatGPT has to say. So we measured out 14.25. The standard wheelbase for an 8.3 skateboard deck is typically around 14 inches. However, it can vary. I guess this is just a little bit longer of a wheelbase than normal. So the board overall is a little bit shorter than an average 8.3 board, but the wheelbase is just a little bit bigger. So theoretically, that should mean that the kicks are a little bit short. We're looking about just around 6.75, I'd say. So ChatGPT is telling me that a standard nose for an 8.3 is typically around 7 inches. A standard tail for an 8.3 is around 6.5. And this is at 6.75 pretty much. So this is pretty normal for a twin tail board. It's never quite exactly a tail, and it's never quite exactly a nose, right? It's somewhere in between. Now, I'm no bend to grow, but I did buy this little measuring gauge, and I measured the kicks right when I got it. What's interesting about this board is these kicks appear to be a little bit steeper than a twin tail, right? To me, it felt almost like a twin nose. I really had to lift up my front foot to get that tail to hit. Also, when I measured the angle of this part of the nose versus this part of the nose, I found that this nose isn't flat, it actually curves up like that. I think at the steepest point, it's around 21 degrees, and then it gradually kind of curves. But I found that to be really interesting, that it kind of curved up like a quarter pipe or like a kicker, rather than just being flat. And I think that might be one reason why I really liked skating this board. I chipped this board up pretty good. You can see right there. Again, right in there. Also had some delamination coming in right here. And the board cracked probably like 6 different times on like disasters or just random things. You'll see it's got a little bit of a crack going on right there. But this board refused to break. At the end of this video, I'm gonna go ahead and snap it, but I think part of the reason why I like skating this board, even when it was super beat up, is because it's got a decent amount of curvature throughout the entire board. So it's got a decent amount of concave. It's not super concave-y, but it's not flat. And then because the nose and tail, or I guess they're both noses, they're both tails, it's symmetrical. But the kicks, I feel like it's probably gotta help the fact that the kicks are a curve rather than flat. If you have a flat kick, it's gonna put all the pressure when you go to snap your board, it's gonna put it all right where the curve is. But because the curve is distributed across the length of the nose, I feel like that's gotta help the rigidity and help it stay crispy longer. If it weren't for the fact that this board was like about to break in the middle, I would keep skating this board chips and all. I've really enjoyed this shape, and I'll talk more about why as we get into the video, but I feel like I've done a good job covering, you know, all the specs, everything that you could possibly want to know about this board. If I missed something, leave it in the comments below, but let's keep moving and talking about why I like this board. First up, as far as like the aesthetic of the board, this is definitely not a graphic that I typically would go for. It doesn't say Quasi anywhere on the graphic. It's just this big like amoeba black hole looking thing, which I thought was pretty cool. But what I really liked about it is just the plain blue stain on the bottom. I feel like when you have a full graphic, it looks really beat up. The graphic starts to scratch off and whatnot, and then it reveals the stained ply anyway. So if you've got a good stain color on the bottom ply, I just personally like that a lot better than a scratched up graphic. So the way that this graphic was put on there, it looks sick, but I especially like how it aged over time. Also, I was a big fan of the top ply. That's why I did this. I really like both these colors, top and bottom ply. So it definitely was hype looking down at my board while skating. Okay, so now as far as like the construction of the board, this board is pressed by BBS. Same people that press Primitive, Real, Baker, you know, so many huge companies. BBS is pretty dependable. The one thing I will complain about is it feels like every BBS board that I have, when I'm doing tray flips up the Euro, I have a tendency to leave my board and it'll like smack the corner of the Euro, right? So that's where I get these chips right here. So I got, yeah, you can see that exact same spot. So you can see right here and right here, it just started to chip, and then again over here it just started to delam. Now overall the board still has good pop. In the popping area I didn't have any problems really, but I have had other boards like the glider skateboards that were sent to me. When I hit the board on the corner of the Euro like that, the board would dent, but it wouldn't delam right away. Whereas with my real boards, I really like the Real Ashad Twin Tail. And this one, for some reason, it wants to delam the first time it gets a good hit. Obviously, you know, that's on me for flinging my board into the corner of the step. But I have noticed with BBS boards that overall they're good, but I have had boards that were a little bit more sturdy in terms of just, you know, chipping on the sides. But overall, I don't feel like the board got super mushy. I feel like this board held its shape really good. It's just mainly around the edges, the chipping that I was having issues with. For some reason, this board just would crack and crack, but it never really felt like it was about to break. And at the end of the video, when I focus it, we'll find out, you know, how much life really was left in this board. So in terms of like the construction, I'll probably give it like a 7 out of 10. Overall, I've never really had a bad experience with BBS. Now, one thing that I noticed skating this board is we talked about how the kicks gradually curve upwards, right? It's like a little quarter pipe. It's not a straight line across the tail. I really like that because it made the kick just a little bit steeper, which for me, I'm usually somebody that likes mellow kicks. I like a quick, fast, controlled pop, but this Quasi board changed everything for me. I seriously was vibing really hard with this curved, a little bit steeper, symmetrical kick. The reason being, you have to really like lift your foot up, this foot out of the way to get a clean pop off of your tail. And that messed with my timing initially. But the reason I didn't give up on it is because I heard P-Rod talk about his symmetrical board that he skates for Primitive. It's a shape that Dylan Jabe made, and it's actually a twin nose. And the reason P-Rod switched to skating a twin nose is he said that as I'm getting older, a twin nose allows me to pop my board a little bit steeper and get my nose up into the air more. So that way it makes it easier for me to, you know, then flip my board up and catch it high, rather than with, you know, a mellow kick board, you're gonna hit the tail really early, and to get it, you know, as high as a steeper kick, you're really gonna have to put a lot of force down into it. So I feel like I got a lot more pop out of this, and not necessarily like that it was the wood was extra poppy, but because of the angle of the kicks, I felt like I was able to bring the board up with me more on my flip tricks, which at first, like I said, was a big struggle to get used to the timing. You know, when I went to pop, normally where my board would hit, it wasn't hitting, so I had to wait even longer. But it really helped me bring up my kick flips, you know, bring up my ollies, just helped me really get a feeling for waiting and pulling that board up into the air. So I really like that. And as well, in terms of like sliding my foot up on the ollie side, like on the whichever kick was in front, because this thing is shaped like a curve, right? I felt like I had just so much grip pulling the board, like leveling it out, right? Because typically, you know, if you got a straight line here, your foot has a tendency to like, you know, slip a little bit as you're leveling the board out. But because it like curves, I felt like it almost like cupped my foot, like it gripped my foot better, and I was able to get not only a steeper pop, but then to be able to like really pull my nose forward and up and level it out. And I think that's why this board is probably now my favorite twin tail shape. Also, I do like that the nose tapers a little bit. I used to be really into like full kicks, and this one's not a super pointy kick either. It's just kind of in between. Something about it, I feel like it allows you to like flick your kick flips a little bit more closer to the nose, right? If you got a big fat, you know, square nose, and you try flicking right here, your foot's like gonna get stuck. But on like a tapered nose, I feel like I can flick closer to the center of the nose, which again helps lift my board up into the air while also getting my foot through the nose and getting just a really nice, good, clean feeling flick. Ben DeGrosse always talks about it like your Goldilocks board or whatever. I feel like so many things about this board were like Goldilocks for me. Like, wasn't too full, it wasn't too narrow. The shape of the kicks were just right. As far as, you know, the steepness, same thing. Wasn't too steep, wasn't too flat. It had this perfect little curve. It was just right. Same thing with the concave. Not too flat, not too curvy. It was just right for me. Now, in terms of like the actual like pop, like I said, the construction of these boards, like I did have issues, you know, around the sides of the kicks with chipping, but nothing off the actual tip. And I feel like the pop stayed good the entire time. Like I said, if it weren't for the fact that these chips are getting so gnarly and there's cracks in the center of the board, like I would keep skating this board. Like I literally could probably skate this board forever. And it's crazy because I never ever would have, you know, had Quasi on my radar. It was because you guys in that stream that were there that wanted me to review the Quasi board, and I mean, you guys donated like $120 in super chats, like blew it up, that I even got the board, you know, with the money that you guys gave me. And yeah, I'm really happy I did. This is probably my favorite twin tail that I've ever skated. Now, in terms of something that I think could be improved on this board, I mean, I talked about, you know, the chipping. The other one is just personal preference. I love slick bottom boards. Ashad's twin tail is a slick bottom. I think that's the first slick bottom that I ever skated. And as soon as I experienced it, I was like, I wish it was more common to find slick bottom boards, just because when you're skating a ledge, right, if the wax isn't consistent, that slick bottom really, you know, evens it out. It makes it a more consistent slide. So I love the Ashad shape, but they only do the slick bottom in the 837, which works for me, but that shape, you know, sells out pretty quick. And other than that, I don't think there's anybody else making a twin tail with a slick bottom. Also, I feel like it does help your board last longer for some reason, just in terms of, you know, if you're landing in the center of your board, like say on a disaster, because it's a little bit slick, your board doesn't get like stuck in one spot, which I guess some people probably would hate that. But I don't know, I really wish, you know, Quasi, if you're watching this, first of all, sponsor me. I'm just kidding. But like, for real, if you guys want to send me some boards, to be honest, this board is sold out, and I went and found a skate shop in Arizona that has a Quasi twin tail, and I didn't even like the graphic, but I ordered it online through that Cowtown Skateboards just so I could get this shape again. Quasi, I love your boards. If you wanted to go crazy, put a slick bottom on it, and I don't know, I think that it would be over for me. This would be the ultimate board. But I told myself that I would snap this board at the end of this video because I need to move on. I need to try out all these boards that Dwindle sent me. Really curious about this board. It's got a bunch of like squigglies along the nose, that texture to like hold wax for lead skating. And it's also got steep kicks and full tail and a full nose. So very, very different than this, but I'm curious to skate it. So I've got to snap this or else I'll just keep skating it. Even with how beat up it is, that's how much I like it. But I need to move on, and plus in a few days, or actually later today, I'm going to get another one in the mail, and I just gotta move on for a second, try out something else, and then I'll be back. So let's snap this board. I am wearing just slides right now, so I don't know, this might be a bad idea, but I'm just gonna go for it in the slides and see what we can do. See if I can break it. Alright, I'm just like testing it out because I don't want to just like go for it and just die, because I'm afraid there's still a lot of I think I need to put shoes on. I need to put shoes on. Despite the fact that it's been cracking, I'm telling you, because of the shape of everything in this concave, I think I'll hurt my foot if I do this in slides. Let me go grab a shoe real quick. I got my Tiago 808s. I feel like these are like the ultimate board snapping shoes. So let's see if we can do this first try. Ready? All right, right here. Yeah, we got it. It's over. I'm gonna miss this board. Until we meet again, Quasi. Quasi Skateboards, if you wanna send me a box, you know I'll go crazy with the video. Make every day Friday. All right.